and welcome to the third lecture in sustainable energy technology. So, in the last two lectures, we introduced our course, explained the various types of energy that exist in various forms in the world, and also saw some of the ways energy use is intimately connected to the economic development and human development in our society. We also saw various ways of measuring energy, various units of energy and power, and gave some examples of where these units are used. Today we will finish our first kind of a broad overview of introduction to energy in society by looking at the major macro trends in energy use by country, by time, by source, by utilization sectors, etc., so that you have a general feeling of where the energy industry is headed. That will give you a better understanding when we discuss over the next lectures throughout this course the various technologies and help you to place these technologies in terms of their current status and future status as an important contribution to the energy transition from fossil fuels to sustainable energy. So with this, let us begin. In the previous class, we were discussing the Human Development Index. So we will continue from the next section here. So here, in this slide, which is taken from an important document called Key World Energy Statistics by International Energy Agency, IEA. So just a brief overview of IEA. International Energy Agency collects data of energy use and creates a report giving a lot of details about energy statistics globally every year. And these reports are free. So if in 2022, 2021 reports become free. In 2023, 2022 reports become freely accessible. So that helps us to understand the year-to-year changes, and they give a lot of data about the yearly trends as well as decadal trends in energy use. So here we are looking, if you look at this right curve, the year-wise change in the world energy supply. Okay. So the world energy supply has been plotted from 1971 to 2019. So that is more than 46 years, right? And the units of energy here is in exajoules. All right. So this is 10 to the power 18 joules. All right. So this is 200 into 10 to the power 18 joules. So the total world energy supply in 1971 was around 200 exajoules, which had increased by 2019 to around 600 exajoules. Okay. So here the exact values are shown. 1973 is 254 exajoules. 2019 is 606 exajoules. All right. So you can see a near monotonic increase in energy use has occurred. Energy production and energy use has occurred throughout the world. Okay, over the decades. All right. And the increase has been around 2.5 times. So 254 into 2 is 508. This is 606. So 2.4 to 2.5 times the energy production in 1973. So over a course of say 45 years, approximately, we had seen a 2.5 time increase in the global energy use. And as you expect, this is tracked to the increasing GDP per capita of the world as well. What is more interesting perhaps is where this increase has happened. So the blue zone is what are called OECD countries. Okay, OECD countries is an acronym, basically clubs together all the developed nations in the world. So USA, all the Western European countries, Japan, South Korea, these belong to the OECD countries. So Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, they call them. So it's kind of the developed countries in the world are clubbed together as OECD. And if you see, their quantum of energy use has not increased over these decades significantly at all. All right. Where the increase has happened primarily is this yellow zone, which is China, and this red zone, which is non-OECD Asia, which primarily contains India, Southeast Asia, etc. Okay, so the contribution of India, Southeast Asian countries like Indonesia, Thailand, etc. Are put here. Okay, as well as Middle East. Okay, Middle East is this one. Sorry, Middle East is this black orange area. What are the other regions? You have non-OECD Europe and Eurasia. So this usually contains the countries of the erstwhile Soviet Union. So Russia, Ukraine, these countries which are not considered part of the developed European countries and was originally part of the Soviet Union are given in the blue region. And the deep purple is Africa, and this is the non-OECD American regions, so Brazil, Argentina, etc. Okay. So you can see that in 1973, around 62% of the total energy produced and utilized was in the developed world, and around 15% was in Soviet Union sphere of influence. So these together was around 76%. So 3/4 of the world's energy production and consumption happened in what might be called the first world countries. This situation has changed significantly over the last 45 years. The OECD and the USSR, the Russian region, Federation region contribution have decreased as a proportional to the total energy consumption or production. It has remained relatively flat, whereas large amounts of energy production additions have happened in India, China, Southeast Asia, and even parts of Africa. Okay, as they have developed and their GDP growth has accelerated, particularly if you see from 1990 onwards. Okay, and that is where the energy growth has happened over the last 4 decades. Now that was the country-wise energy production or energy generation profile. This one, again from the same IEA World Energy Statistics 2021, we are seeing the energy, what has been the source of that energy that has been produced. Okay. So when we look at sources of energy, we can classify into 2 broad groups: fossil fuel based sources and non-fossil fuel based sources. Fossil fuel based sources include coal, oil, natural gas. So coal is the solid fossil fuels primarily made of carbon. Oil is liquid fossil fuels. A segment of the oil has been used in the transportation industry, in diesel, petrol cars, as well as in some industrials for heat generation, electricity generation, etc. And finally, natural gas, which is used for heating purposes in furnaces, boilers, etc., as well as in electrical generation. Natural gas primarily consists of methane. Okay. So, those are the fossil-based fuel sources. The non-fossil based fuel sources are rather diverse. You have nuclear, okay, which is not a renewable source, but is definitely not a fossil fuel based source. So nuclear is an established energy technology used for generating electricity. Then you have hydroelectricity, water based, again a very established renewable energy source, hydroelectric power generation. Then you have energy from biofuels. This can be traditional biomass. So for example, when villagers use firewood or charcoal for their cooking stoves, ovens, etc., that is a use of traditional biomass for heating, cooking applications. Then you can have modern industrial biomass sources like ethanol, which is a substitute of petrol, biodiesel, which is a substitute of diesel from petroleum in trucks. Then you can have biogas, which is a substitute for methane, again from gasifying a biomass source. Okay, so those two together, traditional biomass and more modern biomass based fuels together form biomass based energy sources. Okay, then you have the modern renewables. We call them modern renewables because they have gained traction only in, say, the last 15 years in a big way. Before that, traditional renewable would mean hydroelectric and biomass. Correct. So modern renewables means like solar and wind. These two are primarily looked into this, and to a certain extent nowadays green hydrogen is also becoming important, at least in the policy segment, even if not in the actual applications are very low right now. So these modern renewable systems are solar energy, wind energy, etc. Okay. So now the same chart like this, the total energy supply, this is separated in regions, this is separated in sources. The brown is coal, right? The light blue is oil, the dark blue is natural gas, the yellow is nuclear, the purple is hydro, the green is biofuels, and this off-white is other, which contains all your modern renewables. Okay, maybe some other things as well. What are the trends? Okay, you see that the percentage of fossil fuel use has not changed significantly between 1971 and 2019. In 1971, so these are the kind of the pie charts, 24.7% of the total energy produced came from coal. Okay, when the total amount of energy being produced was 254 exajoules. Today, when the amount of energy produced is 606 exajoules, the amount of energy coming from coal is 26.8%. It has actually increased by 2%. Okay. So the increase in coal has actually kept pace and even slightly accelerated over the total growth in energy production. Another area where fossil fuel energy production has increased significantly is natural gas. In 1973, around 16% of the total energy produced came from natural gas. In 2019, it is 23%. So, natural gas has increased its share by around 7-8%. Okay, around 9%, I would say, 7-8%. Okay. So clearly the natural gas generation based energy generation has increased significantly faster compared to the total increase in energy requirements. However, the share of oil has decreased. Okay, so what has happened primarily, I would say, is that natural gas mainly and coal to some extent has taken over the share of oil. So oil, petroleum, was 46% of the total energy being produced in 1973. This has decreased significantly by 16%. So the total energy production from oil has come down to around 31%. So oil's contribution to energy production has decreased. And as we will see later, this has primarily happened because of more fuel efficient vehicular fleets, as well as oil's contribution to electricity generation or industrial furnaces has decreased significantly, and natural gas has taken over that role. Another significant growth area has been nuclear. Nuclear was already around 1%, okay, in 1973, and the relative share has increased to 5%. So 5 times increase in the relative share. Okay. And that means a significant addition in nuclear power plants has happened over the last 40-45 years. Okay. So electricity production, energy production has moved partly to natural gas, to nuclear at the expense of oil. Biofuels and waste has remained reasonably steady. It has decreased a little bit from 10% to 9%. Small decrease, but a decrease nonetheless. Hydro has increased modestly from 1.8% to 2.5%. And others, which includes solar, wind and modern renewables, has certainly increased significantly in proportional terms. It was just 0.1% before and now it's 2.2%. So if you think of a relative increase, because it comes from a very small base, you can see it as a over 22 times increase in the production capacity of modern renewables. But as a share of the total energy produced, it remains extremely small. Okay. Now, what does this mean? Okay. Even in 2019, fossil fuels, coal, oil, natural gas, continue to produce the bulk, 81% of world energy in 2019. Okay. If you see how it was before, it was around 85%, so 25 plus 46. So it's around 71 plus 16, so it's around 86%. So it has decreased modestly to from 86% to 81% of the total world energy between 1973 and 2019. Okay. So despite our push for renewable energy, sustainable energy driven by pollution concerns and climate change concerns that has been discussed extensively in media and literature over the last 20-30 years, and the threat of global warming and the damages it is doing to the world, we have not been able, even till 2019, and the situation has not changed in the last 4 or 5 years, able to induce a shift from a fossil fuel based energy economy to a sustainable energy economy based on renewables or more efficient means of energy production. And that modern renewables, solar, wind, still produce only 2% of the energy in 2019. So there is a long way to go if we are moving from this kind of a situation to a region where renewable energy and sustainable energy makes a significant contribution to the world energy production. And that is the challenge ahead of us, ahead of you, if you wish to work in this energy transition technologies for your career. Now, this is world energy end use. So world energy has been energy is being produced. How it is being utilized? Okay. Now here there is a significant change that you may miss. Okay. And so you still have coal, natural gas, others, oil, etc. But a significant source of energy that is being utilized as it is coming to you is electricity. Okay. So electrical energy is an energy that is being generated at the power plants and consumed at the consumer level. So what is being consumed actually at the end use sectors? That has been discussed here. For example, if you look at oil, it is being consumed directly. You are putting oil in your trucks and cars and consuming it directly. So oil is there. Natural gas, in cold countries, you use natural gas directly in your waters, in your piping systems as cooking oil for cooking purposes as well as building heating purposes. So a part of natural gas is also being directly used by residential sectors and industries for heating purposes. Okay. So natural gas is part of this. Biofuels, as we discussed, biodiesels, bioethanol, charcoal, natural wood, dried wood, etc. are being used directly for cooking purposes, even for transportation industry. So this is also direct use. Then you have electricity, as we discussed, and others is a kind of a mishmash of various technologies that exist. Okay. Notice hydroelectricity and nuclear has been taken off this chart because these generate electricity only. Alright, so the electricity segment contains every contribution from every other sources, including all of hydroelectricity and nuclear. All right, you are not using nuclear fuel rods in your house, for example. Okay. And here, an interesting trend is that the segment of electricity generation and electricity consumption is increased significantly. That is, our energy technologies are becoming increasingly electrified. It was around 10% in 1973, and it is around 20% in 2019. So, a doubling of the amount of electricity that is being consumed. Okay. And this electrification happened because much of the world is becoming electrified now. Many of the traditional ways of doing things is being used, and electricity is being used more and more. So if you think of a more recent technology trend, you are seeing electric vehicles, right? So that is a directly using electricity when a traditional fuel like coal, while petroleum would have been used. Okay. Then you have electric heating systems. So instead of using natural gas, you are putting electricity and heating your water using that, right? So electricity use is becoming more and more pronounced throughout the world. In Western countries, you will often see your hot plates are becoming bigger and is taking over the entire cooking system. So instead of gas, you are using electrical stoves, electrical hot plates to cook everything. So more and more technologies are being replaced by electricity use. Okay, so that is an important trend here. So let us look at this section, this electricity section that we have been discussing. Okay, so here, how much, where the electricity is being produced from. So, okay, that is what world electricity generation by source. Okay, and here you see the change in units. The units have changed to terawatt hours. Okay, so you remember kilowatt hour, megawatt hour, gigawatt hour, terawatt hour. So watt hour is a traditional unit of electricity. So instead of using joules or exajoules, we are looking to terawatt hours. All right, and you can see this blue is basically the entire fossil thermal. Okay, so coal, oil, natural gas, all of that together is the contribution from fossil fuel based electricity generation. Okay, and you see here this has increased significantly, of course, because the total electricity being produced in the world has also increased significantly from around 6,000 terawatt hour to 26,000 terawatt hour. So around 3.4 times increase in electricity generation has happened between 1973 and 2019, and it is still driven a lot by fossil fuel based sources. So like coal power plants, okay, oil based production and natural gas based production. Okay. Note, however, a significant shift. So in 1973, 38% of the electricity came from coal, 24% came from oil, 12% came from natural gas. All right. Today, 36% comes from coal, so coal's share has remained the same. Natural gas is 23%, so double the amount, the relative amount compared to 1973 case. And oil share has been destroyed completely from 24% to 2.8%. So a 10 times decrease in the relative share of oil in electricity production. So that has been a major shift in the electricity generation technology in the conventional energy sector. Other important aspects, the percentage share of nuclear has increased from 3% to 10%. So a significant increase in nuclear electricity generation capacity. Hydro's fractional share has actually decreased from 20% to 15%, so the overall share has increased. So hydro remains a significant contributor even though the fractional share has decreased. And non-hydro renewables and waste, that was almost insignificant in 0.6%, but by 2019 that has become as large as nuclear around. So this is all solar, wind, etc. It has become around 11%. It has grown even further in the last 3-4 years. Okay. So as you can see, therefore, if you look at the electricity sector only, there renewables have made a significant contribution. So going from nothing in 1973 to over 11%, and now it will be around 14-15%. Okay. So, and this growth has happened primarily, if you can see, from around 2008 onwards. A rapid increase in the market share of renewable electricity from solar, wind in the electricity generation case. So that is a good sign, and if this trend continues, as we hope it will continue, in the next few decades, a significant fraction of electricity will certainly come from renewable sectors. Okay. So, if you see here, there are two trends going on. Firstly, there is an overall increase in the amount of electricity that is being produced as a share of the total energy that is being consumed. Okay, so electrification is increased, and the renewable share of electricity is also increasing. So if you take the two trends together, this is a clear pathway by which renewable energy technology can take more and more of the total primary energy production in the future decades. Okay. So if you look at policy documents, there is a lot of discussions and regarding what is the process. But one clear trend is we have to electrify technologies more and more as far as possible, and we have to increase our capacity, our renewable energy based electricity production faster. So that way the share of renewables in our energy generation will increase at a quicker pace than it has happened in the past. Okay. So that's kind of the policy take back you can take from here.